Hello. Perfect. Good afternoon to everyone here. This is the last panel. Most of us are hungry, and Prince just announced that the lady and gentleman sitting up here are sitting between you and your after party. So we will do our very best to go through this very quickly. Jeremy gave us a very good intro. His presentation on Fintech was a very good one. He highlighted a lot of the things that perhaps we'll be talking about today. So without much ado, there's no need for me to give any intro. I'll just dive right into it. Ethel, the panel before this had one gentleman, and this panel only has you. But we will start with you. So Ethel, as someone deeply involved in the fintech space, how have you seen fintech shape the financial markets in Ghana?
Okay, so I think when you think about it, we've been fortunate. I think we're born in a time where we've actually seen the divide or sort of the movement from the traditional banking. A lot of us are even pre-SMS, pre-text, right? Some of us were, where we didn't even have SMS, and now we are in this place where, we are banking at our fingertips. And so there's been quite a journey. And to give you context, let me go back to how we became a mobile-first country, right? So when we started, a number of things happened. There's always a perfect storm. To become mobile-first, 3 things happened: cheap Nokia phones. Governments realized that they could make a lot of money selling licenses to telcos, right? And then telcos also figured that they could sell airtime so they could do prepaid versus postpaid, and that created the perfect storm to where most of the country now owns a mobile phone. And then we're going into what I think is our perfect storm for fintech, a very youthful population in Africa and in Ghana. I think the median age is less than 20, right? And then Ghana is in top 4 countries that receive VC investments into the fintech space in Africa. So, and then according to IFC, we have something like 16% of the developer skill sets across the continent actually reside in Ghana. So we are moving towards a perfect space of Ghana also becoming the sort of fintech mecca. Now, how it will affect us is that the developers and the tech folks and the bankers are going to, whether happily or begrudgingly, are going to have to come to the table and work together. I've sat on many panels where I got in trouble. A couple of years ago, I was sitting with 4 banking CEOs, and I said, innovation in banking is not going to happen within the banks with the existing people in the banks. It's going to come out of people who are sitting back, that are not entrenched in the banking system, that can see the opportunity, and it wasn't taking well, but hopefully this room takes that better. And so yes, there is going to be change in what banking is, how banking works, how fintech works. But the core of the banking services itself, that's not going to change. How we deliver it, That's going to change. People are going to need somewhere to put their bank's money. People are going to need savings products. People are going to need all those things. But how it will be delivered is going to change. Right.
Thank you very much, Ethel. That was quite elaborate. Franklin, I'm going to come to you now because Ethel closed off her comments by focusing on the relationship between banking and fintechs. So let me ask you, how is the banking sector adapting to fintech innovations, especially in enhancing financial services for the underserved communities?
Okay, so thank you very much. I think I will take the question this way, right? So, in the long run, there's always a discussion of who will win, whether it's a fintech or it's a bank. And I think the CEO of Jumo did a very good job in explaining that in the long run, as with any revolution that we see in any industry, some banks will become fintechs, some fintechs will become banks, and some will die. So in the long run, you will see banks looking like fintechs, and you see fintechs looking like banks. So how do we work together to ensure that in that process, we don't destroy value, and that there's not unnecessary competition and duplication of effort where we see investors' capital being dried up in that process? So banks will definitely rely on fintechs because we are not that agile, whether I like it or not. I'm a banker, right? The culture to build a fintech is different, right? I can't go to work with slippers, right? I'll be called, my CEO will tell me, what did you smoke? But the fintech employee can come to work provided he delivers his programs, his applications, and the CEO is okay with him. So in the long run, you see, as you've seen banks do, including ourselves, right, where you try to create a separate entity to create that culture that can compete effectively as a fintech, and not necessarily in the banking space. So you will see more of those, right? Banks set up subsidiaries that will work with fintechs to grow, and not necessarily the bank itself trying to build fintech applications, you mentioned JP Morgan and other stuff, right? You will see that the culture within that small group of innovators is quite different from the core investment banks who sit in London or sit in New York. They are quite different. So you will see more of those where they will come to Access Bank, will have bank employees interacting with them, but they are very different. They are paid different, they have different contracts. They can come to work with whatever they want to come to work with. And that's what I think you will see, that banks will collaborate with them, but it will be in a different framework, and it will be more of joint venture, joint development, and then scaling together. In the long run, it will be a blessed situation, whether you are a bank or you are a fintech. I think that's how I see the future moving towards. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Franklin. Albert, let me jump over to you. Franklin talked about how potentially there will be more collaboration. But from where you sit, from your perspective, are we seeing more collaboration or competition between the traditional financial institutions and fintechs?
I think traditionally you saw competition as it came out. There was a case of new kid on the block. Maybe it's a competition. In other markets, you've seen more competitions between traditional banks and digital banks. If we look at the South African market, I would say there's been a couple of digital banks that arose. So the likes of a Discovery Bank has come into the market. A Time Bank also came into the market, where they have gone out with a fintech approach to what they build and do and how they roll it out. And that has been a competition for the other banks. But it's not necessarily been the fintechs that came to the market, it's been the competitors for the banks. A lot of banks are choosing to partner with fintechs. I think fintechs are also acknowledging that they need each other. Banks have invested for years in payment rails, in regulatory reporting, in core banking solutions, and in treasury solutions. Fintechs don't want that. They don't want to build those things, but they do acknowledge that they need that. They need to be able to have access to capital. They need to be able to do settlements or report also to a central bank. So there is more collaboration coming through there. So I think from what I'm seeing a lot more collaboration. I've seen a lot more in the Ghanaian market here. The way we've been able to actually see that from the side is a lot of collaboration, and then also collaboration between different entities, your telcos, your financial institutions, and your fintechs, and seeing the same on your East African side. In Kenya as well, a lot more collaboration between them on the payment side and lending side. So I would see, yes, more working together, more collaboration than there is competition between fintechs and banking. And that's the way it should be, because at the end of the day, part of what we're talking today is financial inclusion. If that is the end game, is that what we're trying to achieve, there should be a collaboration between the different entities.
Thank you very much, Albert. Hayford, let me come to you very quickly. From a regulatory perspective, and let me just say that the Bank of Ghana has done a tremendous job. The introduction of guidelines and the proper regulations to regulate the fintech space has sort of opened up the market, made things a bit clearer for the players to actually participate. Now, it is obvious, or it is clear, that fintechs and financial institutions and banks are collaborating, or they will collaborate. And I think we can all agree that that collaboration is crucial for the financial inclusion that we seek. How do you see this collaboration evolving in Ghana? And what role does the Bank of Ghana play in facilitating the partnership between fintechs and the banks?
Right, thank you. So maybe let me start on this premise. Jeremy referenced a number of documents in the policy approach that Ghana has adopted, and you see that in all of those, talk of the National Financial Inclusion Development Strategy, talk of the Digital Financial Strategy, talk of towards a cash-light agenda, there is the intentionality to use fintechs to push financial inclusion. There is an intentionality to use fintech to promote access to financial services for MSMEs and the likes. Now, this is it. There is what you call regulatory trilemma. As a regulator, you want to push financial inclusion for obvious benefits. You want to push simplicity of rules. But once you do that, we will then be left with the issue of market conduct and stability. Remember that our first and primary responsibility is for price stability. And so, to have a balance, you want to have a system in place where innovators, disruptors, who may not have been quiet in the space for long, in the regulatory space for long, and so sometimes find it difficult to appreciate regulations, will have to collaborate with the banks so that whilst the banks are benefiting from the innovative ideas, they can also benefit from the AML compliance learnings that the banks have built all these years. So if you look at our frameworks, when it comes to mobile money, you have a bank holding the float. When it comes to any of the partnerships that the fintechs have, the talk of IMT, inward money transfer, you require a settlement bank. And then when it comes to the products that Jeremy was talking about, investments, credits, and so on, the fintechs are serving as avenues to enable the banks to extend their products to unreached segments. And once you are reaching these segments, it's a two-way benefit. For the bank, in market segments that were heated to have been too expensive to explore, they will leverage on the fintechs and be able to reach those segments. And it's not just the banks, let me just say. So you have insurance, you have pensions, you have securities companies, all trying to leverage on fintechs to expand their services. So instead of an insurance company going in for a customer who will be paying, say, 1 CD, 2 CD as insurance premiums, that's quite costly for the insurance company. But you leverage on a fintech and they develop a solution, and with that solution, whilst remaining in the confines of your office as an insurer, you are still able to benefit from this. So the partnership and collaboration can only continue into the future because we see that there are benefits for each of them in this arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Hayford. Brian, let me just come to you very quickly. Hayford talked about IMT, inward money transfers. From your experience, how would you describe the flow of capital inwardly, especially from remittances, on the back of the growth or advancements in fintech? How has the flow of capital impacted our businesses?
I think, without a doubt, remittances have played a key role in being the major source of FX for the country as a whole. And it's very important to recognize that this wouldn't have been possible without the power of tech. And so it places more emphasis and it places more importance on the need for the country to think in the direction of technology. The future is tech, the future is AI, and there's a need for us as a country to grow, or like he was rightly saying, Hayford was rightly saying, provide the regulatory framework to allow inward remittances, for example, grow beyond their current capacity. I feel like we've done very well as a country, but there is a lot of room for improvement. I believe in terms of the regulator, we could be more proactive with the kind of measures we put in place for some of these remittance flow. And that's not to say they are not already making major inroads in that area. But I believe there's more we could do in that respect. And also I think there's a need to prioritize the growth of tech-based companies in this country or in Africa as a whole. It's an easier way for us to solve the problems we have in terms of job creation. It's an easier way to solve problems we have in terms of accessing capital from the foreign markets. So yeah, that would be my perspective on that.
Thank you very, very much, Brian. Albert, from your experience with, and forgive me if I get the name wrong, Andal Solutions. Adie Solutions. What are the biggest opportunities fintechs present for businesses in Ghana, especially in reaching the underserved populations?
So our company's name is Andile, a company that started in 2008. I was one of the founding members. Why I'm telling you this story is that we started as entrepreneurs. In capital markets, in banking, we started a company. I believe in the power and the role that an entrepreneur plays in an economy. We've seen it. We've been part of it. If you've got a strong, the entrepreneurs are empowered by the government, if they are well capitalized and supported by your financial structures, you have a stronger economy. And that is the role that fintech also plays, is to empower the entrepreneur in the streets that are selling selling their food, giving them access to banking, giving them access to credit, giving them access or a capability to save. I believe that fintechs actually walk the streets and they see the need on the street of the entrepreneur there where they are, and they build solutions for that. They build bespoke solutions. I think on the agricultural side, I was just looking at one of the companies that have been doing phenomenally in terms of agricultural growth. They saw the need in the agriculture and they addressed that, and they were able to then bring the farmer in the rural community together with the investor sitting here in Accra wanting to place funds, and there is, through the fintech, the entrepreneur has been able to then be connected to capital and then also connected to the market. So that is what the fintech does. Fintech individuals, they build bespoke close to what they see the market needs, because they're also entrepreneurs. They also see that. I think the other role just of fintech is, and we've mentioned this word a couple of times, they are collaborators. We all say there's an ecosystem that we're part of here. There's a financial systems ecosystem, and the ecosystem is working together. And the fintechs brings telcos, brings the man and woman on the street, brings the financial institution, the banking, everyone together. So there's a collaboration role that is played. And also with fintechs being able to adopt newer technology, being able to, and I'm not going AI, everyone thinks new technology is AI. No, new technology is being able to look at new coding languages, to look at more databases and infrastructure and cloud technology that is more cost effective to build solutions on. They use that. So that then flows through to the end user, because it is more affordable for them because they can now get financial services at a better price. So they bring the price down, and fintechs also creates more competition in the market. More competition is also good for the consumer at the end of the day. It's maybe as banks, as financial institutions, we don't want to hear that, but it is also so good that they bring that to the market. So, and at the end of the day, that just stimulates the financial inclusion that we are often talking about.
Thank you very much, Albert. Ethel, as an entrepreneur and a global speaker, what do you see as the critical success factors for fintech startups in Ghana?
Well, we'll start with regulation. My regulator is sitting beside me. Look, we've done well in Ghana to create a whole department, but also have a department that's actually headed by somebody who used to work in the telcos, that has the experience. Ghana has done exceptionally well. I've said this before on platforms where I said one of the biggest success factors for us in the industry or otherwise is lifelong regulators, right? So we have people who don't understand the space, but we're very lucky in Ghana. I think there is room for growth there, and I'll say it again because I've said it on the Bank of Ghana stage, that I still think there's room for improvement, and I still think there is a need for a third deputy governor who is dedicated from the industry, who's a digital person. And I think that has access to the BOG board, that has, that level. I think that will accelerate a number of the things we've done. The other critical success factor, which I find funny, is MTN. MTN, because they've done the work in actually building out the pipeline. Now they have what we call Chinosis, which is they're giving APIs and platforming out, enabling fintechs and organizations and even banks to be able to plug in. That's going to be a game changer for us, because quite frankly, 90% of the mobile money sits with them. And I asked somebody the other day that if you wanted economic data on Ghana outside of middle income, you would have to look at the MTN mobile money data. So, and then our third thing is youth. We have I've said it before, we have a young, skilled group of people that will build out things. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very, very much, Ethel. Well, since you've touched on regulation a bit, and Brian also touched on regulation a bit. So Hayford, without coming off as if we are all throwing jabs at you at this point, I just want to know from a regulator's perspective what the challenges for the fintech companies are from a regulator's perspective.
All right, so obviously, as I first indicated, the framework itself that we have in place seeks to leverage the expertise of the banks when it comes to compliance issues and regulatory issues to assist the fintechs. Now, we see in our space, we think that our institutions are doing quite well. What is lacking is, for instance, an acceptance or for industry for the society to recognize the impact that they are making. And then also the aspect of investment, which I think Ethel also touched on. So if you look at the 3 African Summit that we held this year, we targeted these 3 key areas: innovation, investment, impact. The fintechs are innovating. They've really innovated. There are a lot of innovative solutions out there. Ghana is doing so well, and as I don't know whether it was Ethel that mentioned, that it's about like the 4th in attracting investments. But then, when you have the central bank itself trying to push you out there, it sort of gives you a leverage that can take you up, because you realize that even the regulator or the Bank of Ghana with all its powers is pushing this. And look at the conference that we had, about 8,000 participants attending, including central bank governors, coming in to discuss how we can even take the cross-border issues further. Because we see scaling as one of the bottlenecks that our fintechs here are having. And so being able to put the power of the regulator behind them, we seek to ensure that they are able to scale and showcase to the world out there the good things that are happening in Ghana. And maybe just to touch on the bit of regulation, because it's come up severally. We also have a sandbox that we've actually implemented, so that it serves as a ground where the regulator and the innovator can meet to understand the product that is being developed. First of all, we'll get to understand the nature of it, the risks that it poses to the ecosystem, and how we can adapt our framework to be able to accommodate it if we would. And then for the innovator, they get to demonstrate to us the new innovation, the new disruption, the new big thing that the industry is going to see. And based on this together, we can drive the sector forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hayford. My next question will go to either Franklin or Brian. So any one of you can jump in. So we've listened to Hayford, and he's talked about the strides that the central bank is making with respect to regulating that space. From your perspective as market players, are there any regulations or adjustments to some regulations that you think will further enhance the growth of the fintechs? Brian, you want to take this one?
First of all, I think it will be in place to say this is friendly fire, right? Yeah, so Hayford, this one, we are best friends. Anyway, so in my opinion, right, the tech space is a space that is very fast-paced in its growth. It moves extremely fast, and thus regulators need to almost keep up with the pace when it comes to certain regulations. And that's the reason why I use the word proactive in my previous statement, because the regulator needs to almost preempt what the next big thing will be and then create the right framework to protect the consumer, to protect the industry itself from the next big thing. So basically, it's not as though to say there is this regulation that is missing or that is missing. It is more to say we need the regulator, because of the fast-paced nature of the industry, we need the regulator to take a stance of almost preempting what the industry's next big thing will be. So for example, if you talk about the Momo platform, for example, the question should be, what is the future of Momo? What is the future looking like? The whole world is talking about AI right now. I mean, is this going to be inculcated in Momo in the future? If it will be, what are the regulatory frameworks that we can put in place now to sort of protect us in the future when this is trying to be implemented? So I feel once the regulator takes this stance, it's a win-win situation for both the country and the industry and the consumer, actually, because then that way you are in a safe space that allows for innovation and creation, basically. I don't know, Franklin, would you like to?
If there's time. So I think for the regulator, right, the fintech industry is an industry that only grows with scale, right, because they deal with small numbers, right? So they need to gain scale to make money. And it's a business that has a high cash burn rate, because when you start, development can burn up all the cash. So in bringing up regulation for the industry, we need to also look around ourselves, other countries, right? And ensure that as we bring up regulation, we don't limit their ability to compete outside Ghana. It's important that we study other regimes around us to ensure that we put our fintechs at a level where they have an advantage compared to the next fintech in Togo or Nigeria. Because if Nigeria has a very more flexible regime that allows them to scale faster, they will scale and come to your market and your fintechs will not grow. So I think we should have that international perspective when we are developing regulations for the local fintechs to help them scale.
Thank you very much. There's a screen here that has a big red display on it, which is sort of cutting our panel discussion short. But I just want to give the audience an opportunity to ask some questions. So we will take 2 questions from the audience.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask the very little things that you have not said. One of the things that I want to ask is that I'm so grateful to the last panelists who spoke about consumer protection, because fintech is more about consumer protection. Now, my question is, the regulator also said that the adoption or people accepting fintech is not growing fast. But the issue is that if you look at Ghana, illiteracy, Ghana partially rural, what is the regulator's plan, or what are the civic things that have been put in place, or education, to be able to teach the rurals how to even adopt or use the fintechs? Because this is what is going to help us to really go deep and far. Because how do you say fintech in Twi? How do you say fintech in Ghana? It is very, very important that these things must be looked at. It's not just the regulation. And I'm happy that all that I wanted to say has been said in terms of the disruption, the regulation that should come promptly to meet the disruption that comes. So thank you very much. But my next big thing is, how is the education going so that people can adapt fintech? And what are the vocabularies that you are going to use to teach the rural people? Other than that, the scammers will take advantage of them. Thank you.
Hayford, you want to take that one?
Okay. So, of course, education and stakeholder engagements are very vital in ensuring that whatever is happening in the market. One, we help people to understand what the fintechs can do, what they can do, and so on. I know there are some solutions out there that are even trying to develop fintech solutions in local languages to address the kind of language barrier and stuff. But let me just say this. So the Bank of Ghana that we see when we talk about the Fintech and Innovation Office is not just an Accra office. We actually conduct mobile money surveillance across the entire country. And we have a supervisory intelligence platform where we are able to see where the usage of mobile money across the country. We delve into a region and we see where the usage, the dynamics of how the usage is. In areas where we have suspicions, we go in there, apart from our regular surveillance, we go in there and do investigations, talk to the agents on the ground, talk to the mobile money users on the ground, and get to know what the challenges are. And where there are issues, remember that we didn't give the agent a license. We gave the mobile money operator, that we call the dedicated electronic money issuer, you are the one we gave the license. So it is a principal-agent relationship. So you, the principal, you are responsible for the agent, and you are responsible to ensure that your services are used without causing harm to the general public. So we'll send you a very nice letter with all the infractions that we noticed and the actions that you should take to resolve them. Thanks.
Ethel, you want to chime in on that?
Sure. I just wanted to add, so beyond the regulatory, the regulatory work that's done, look, the telcos, if you go to your village, you'll find somebody selling a scratch card. They have figured out distribution. I genuinely think that banks have missed a trick on agency banking on the back of telcos to be able to reach areas that they're unbanked and underserved. Because if Coca-Cola has fixed, has found distribution, telcos has found distribution. If we work on the agent banking and agent networks, I think there are ways in which we can access the people in the remotest areas, and so that the cost of doing business is lowered. It's just all I wanted to add.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay. So to close off, let me just ask my panelists. Next 5 years, where do you see fintech? Albert?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more financial services on everyday, on platforms that are being used every day. I think we're going to see different types of competitors coming into the market where, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, would anyone have thought that a telco would be giving financial services? So I think we're going to see WhatsApps, TikToks, Facebook, Meta, iPhone, Apple, these type of competitors or non-financial services providers actually providing financial services within the markets, where it's going to be a different discussion just around fintech.
I think AI. Banks are going to own a lot of AI first because they can afford it, but fintechs are going to follow by building AI solutions. I'm looking forward to seeing personalized financial services based on AI in the market. Yep.
So let me come from the statistical angle. As of June 2022, the mobile money float, which is a stock of electronic money balances, is around 22.2 billion, whilst bank deposits is a little over 200 billion. So you work it out, it's just a little over 10%. We see that figure growing, and we see the fintechs trying to take a bigger portion of the bank's pie.
For me, I think generative AI will be a very big thing, and your retail app that you see in the next 5 years will not be different from a TikTok application. You will just be watching videos and doing banking at the same time.
I believe it was an interesting statistic Ethel just gave, and it just opened my mind to something. It's possible that we will be talking about neobanks in the next 5 years in this country. It's possible a lot of the traditional banks will move from the brick and mortar and then try to digitalize almost every aspect of the banking operation. And I think that's the first step to the actual boom in tech in Ghana or in Africa, for example. That's my opinion on that.
All right, thank you very much. But before Prince comes for the mic, let me take the opportunity to talk about a fintech out there with a booth called City Manager. Please make sure you make your way to City Manager. There's a QR code there that requires scanning, and there's a short game you can participate in and win some cash prizes and other prizes. So please, let's go and experience fintech out there. Thank you very much.
All right, put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. So Hayford gave us the statistics. Jeffrey is getting the customers right here at the ACI Financial Markets Conference. Yeah, we'll take a quick group picture of the panel. Wow. All too soon, ladies and gentlemen, what was thought as a dream has happened. And it's a joy to see that those here, those who came early on, those who've participated online, our mentors who passed through the mentorship corner, all exhibitors and people who patronize the exhibition stands, all of you have made it possible. And I think it's just proper that you put your hands together and appreciate yourself. Give yourself a big thumbs up. Give somebody a high five. Celebrate yourself. People who traveled from near and far. Mwaka from Zambia. Yes. We had rejoining from Portugal. All over to make sure that this really has been a success. Please put your hands together for yourselves once again, and also let's appreciate our last panel as they take their seats.